Thank you for joining us. We've got a few things to cover here regarding the H-1B Cap season for 2024. As is listed here on your screen, if you have any questions during this call or afterwards, please feel free to use this email address. We're very responsive. We're happy to answer your questions. If you've worked with us already, then you already know our response times, and we'll get back to you very quickly. We know the H-1B Cap for 2024 is a big focus for many employers, especially employers that focus on immigrant workers for their workforce. And so we're completely focused as a firm on this for the next 2 months. H-1B Cap 2024, the process, plans, and timelines. For many of you, you're already familiar with the H-1B program, but for those of you who are not, let me just give a brief overview. H-1Bs are very technical and there's a lot of details, but just to give you some of the basics. So first, you have to have a job for an H-1B visa. It has to be a professional job that requires at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Their education it doesn't have to, and before I move on, it doesn't have to be an actual bachelor's degree. You can be a professional without actually holding a degree. But if you don't hold the degree, we have to prove that you hold the equivalent. And so that brings me to this education tab here. The degree, U.S. education is all built off a 4-year bachelor's degree program. So if we're using an equivalency, we have to show that the degree is the that the qualifications, whether that's some education or work experience or all work experience or any combination really, we have to show that it's the equivalent of a 4-year bachelor's degree. And it has to be in a field that's related to the occupation. So for example, if you're a software developer, it needs to be an IT or a software related degree. It can't be a degree in mechanical engineering. Although we, as a firm, we have had success with many individuals that have degrees in mechanical engineering and are working in the software field. Generally, though, USCIS views mechanical engineering to be unrelated to software engineering. And so what we would do in that instance is we would use an individual's experience and their education to change their major and show that it's the equivalent of a software-related degree when you add the individual's experience. Next, and all H-1Bs must be paid a prevailing wage or the actual wage, whichever is higher, for their particular occupation. And the wages are set based off geographic area. So it has to be, the individual must be paid prevailing wage or actual wage, whichever is higher, for the occupation in the geographic area where they are working. All of these points are critical. Without them, you can't succeed on an H-1B. However, for the H-1B lottery, none of those details matter, except that you need to be prepared to meet them. For the H-1B visa lottery, USCIS created the system in 2020. In my opinion, it has its flaws, but it's a really good system that saves a lot of time and resources for both attorneys, for nationals, and companies. The H-1B lottery or registration system has a low fee, requires just basic information, and allows companies to submit the candidates' names for the lottery process. None of the fees that you typically see for an H-1B application or the in-depth profile is required for the registration and lottery. So that's where the time and resources savings comes into play. Since 2020, so we've had they announced the system in 2020 for an H-1B registration. They used it first in March of 2021. They used it again last year. In the first year they used it, they conducted 3 separate lottery groups. We think that's an anomaly. We don't think we'll see that again. Last year, it was just 1, and it was done in the first week of April. The registration period is usually open for about 3 weeks in March, opening March 1st, usually closing around the 18th to the 21st of March. In the H-1B registration, there are a total of 65,000 visas available for individuals with a bachelor's degree or any foreign degree. If you have a U.S. master's degree from an appropriate institution, there is an additional 20,000 slots that are available to those individuals. So if you have a U.S. master's degree, you essentially get 2 times through a lottery process. The first through the 20,000, and then the remaining numbers are added into the 65,000 lottery. Last year, there were over 400,000 applicants for these 85,000 visas in total. So that's approximately a 20% chance of selection. This year, the official count was actually 17.5. We expect this number this year to be as tight or even tighter. So the documents that we typically need for the pre-registration. So our timeline is March 1st when this registration opens. Sometime around the 31st of March, they notify individuals. Prior to March 1st, we need all the information from our employers for any candidates that you want to submit. This documentation typically includes education documents, passport for the foreign national, and resume for the foreign national. We will then vet that information, prepare it for submission in the H-1B registration system. We need that documentation no later than March 1st in order to be able to catalog for these for you and to ensure that they're submitted to USCIS in the registration on time. Between April and June, we will file all the H-1B petitions for selected cases. Typically, it is selected March 31st, and then USCIS notifies us of selection around the first week of April, giving us a deadline of June 30th to prepare, submit, and file a completed H-1B application for a selected candidate. Nomination process. So ideally, we would have a list of final nominations from all employers no later than February 15. We can accept nominations later than that, but the difficulty is we can't guarantee that we can get your information in time. As always, LBL will do our best, and we are usually very good at getting cases submitted for our clients in tight timeframes. But the sooner you get these information to us, the better. We need 4 items. I hit on this briefly a minute ago. I mentioned it again here. Completed CAP intake form. It's preferred that we have this from you, but it's not required. The critical documents, as I mentioned earlier, are the passport copy, the resume, and a copy of all degrees and transcripts. This allows us to vet the education, determine roughly what's required both now and later, and then also allows us to determine, does an individual with a U.S. master's degree actually qualify for the U.S. master's cap? Not all U.S. universities and colleges qualify for the master's cap. Only a certain list of them do, with defined requirements. Typically, they must be a public university or a nonprofit university or a private nonprofit university. For selected cases, what do we need when we have selected H-1B cases? So in order to file an H-1B, we need an assigned project. We need to demonstrate to USCIS that you have a source of work for this particular resource. We need the specific work location. This location can't change after we file the application. It needs to remain in place until final approval. Work locations can be the client site. They can be a work from home location. They can be the employer's location, depending on your business type. The key to an employer's location is that you have to have individuals from your office doing technical work. A company's main office can't be used as a placeholder and substitute of the real work location. We need an offer letter, an employment agreement that matches the salary, the title, and the occupation. We need a contract agreement and a statement of work for the position that will be existing and valid from October 1st, 2023, or at least past October 1st, 2023. It can be valid and should be at the time of filing. If the individual is already working, that's excellent. But the key is it has to extend past October 1st of 2023. The reason for that date is that October 1st is the earliest start date for any CAP H-1B. Ideally, your contract length for a project needs to exceed 1 year and needs to be valid, therefore, beyond March of 2024. Ideally, the job position should be listed in a statement of work. The reason for the contract agreement, the assigned project, and the job position, the reason those things are critical is that USCIS will want to verify these details. If they may verify it directly with the employee, they may verify it with the petitioning entity, but the bigger risk is that they will expect to verify it with your client. So our next steps for H-1B Cap 2024. We will prepare, collect the documents needed to prepare the petition once a case is selected. We'll file the petition with USCIS, and then we keep you updated for the current status of any case. Some special considerations now for U.S. Individuals that are already in the U.S. on other status. If you're in the United States and you're an F1 student and you have work authorization, maybe that's curricular practical training, CPT, maybe that's OPT, maybe that's OPT STEM. See, the benefit to either of those 3 work authorizations is that you are already working on a project that you can use to support your H-1B. Special considerations, though, if you're on OPT or OPT STEM, you're most likely watching your expiration date of your work authorization very closely, because you know that it's critical that you get an H-1B before it expires. So if your OPT or OPT STEM expires after April 1st, but before September 30th of 2023, you will qualify for something called CAP Gap. Now, CAP Gap is work authorization that covers any gap between your current work authorization, so your OPT or OPT STEM EAD, and the earliest start date, which is October 1st. It is automatic. You don't need any particular documentation other than the receipt showing that you filed your H-1B. You can request an updated I-20 from your school, but it's not required. The key is that your work authorization is automatically selected if your case is selected in H-1B lottery and subsequently filed with USCIS. If you have any questions, please contact us for any guidance with regard to the CAP Gap requirements or questions that you have. I have 2 types of approvals. Now, moving on to your case has been selected in the lottery, you filed it, your case has been approved. Your H-1B has now been approved. There are 2 options. It can be approved with a change of status, changing your status from whatever it is as of today to an H-1B. This one is only applicable to individuals that are in the United States. If you're not in the United States, you're not going to be eligible, or if you enter after the H-1B is filed, you're not going to be eligible for a change of status. If, however, your petition is filed with a change of status, the requirements are: 1, you must be in the United States, maintaining and holding valid status. 2nd, you can't travel once the H-1B is filed. And then final consideration, if you're on F1 OPT or OPT STEM and you need CAP Gap, the change of status is required, or the CAP Gap is not automatic. 2nd type is consular notification. In this instance, H-1B status activation is not part of the petition we filed with USCIS. Activation of your H-1B requires that you go to a U.S. consulate and apply for stamping. Once that stamping is issued, then you will enter the United States, and then you would actually hold the H-1B status. Benefit here is that there's no restriction. If we're applying for consular notification, there's no restrictions on international status or travel while the petition is pending. But the stamping step is required if the individual is located outside the U.S. when the petition is filed. As a firm, we provide assistance with the stamping process to ensure that that process is seamless and that you ultimately see a positive outcome. There are many difficulties and pitfalls with H-1B stamping. Sometimes simple mistakes can result in a 221G or even lead to revocation of the H-1B. So if you're facing H-1B stamping for your visa at any point, contact us so we can assist and support you to ensure that you've got the highest chance of success. What happens if your H-1B lottery is not selected? When will you get the non-selection? And what are your options if you get it, or if you are not selected? So notices of non-selection have been very delayed with the new registration system. In the case of 2021, we didn't see the non-selections until January of 2022. In the case of the lottery that happened for the fiscal year of 2023, which was conducted in April of 2022, we received the notices of non-selection in August and September of 2022. If you're not selected and you're in the United States, it can put you in difficult circumstances where you need creative alternatives. Some of the alternatives are OPT work authorization or CPT, or you can look into H1, H4 dependent status with employment authorization, or L2 dependent status with employment authorization. As long as you have current work authorization, you can continue working. If this 2023 was your last chance and you were not selected, please contact us. We'll be happy to go through your options and give you a customized approach that will maximize your chances to remain in the United States and continue working. Thank you very much. Please feel free to send us any questions that you may have. The best email to reach us is the direct@lukebowmanlaw.com. Either myself or my staff will respond to you within one business day, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.